poor mom's mistake led to an incredible response. 3 hours later, a doctor was on the way. Sarah wiped the counter of the diner relentlessly, the rubbery smell of bacon mingling with an undertone of her own anxiety. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, overwhelmed by the weight of her responsibilities. Her mother's health was fading, and now, a mistake in the pharmacy left Sarah feeling like the ground beneath her was crumbling. Her heart raced as if it knew the stakes. This wasn't just some forgotten order. The wrong pills could cost her mother dearly. Panic surged through her as she turned to the clock, each tick deafening. What had she done? The day had already been a struggle, and now this. She inhaled sharply to steady herself. After what felt like an eternity, the diner buzzed with familiar customers, regulars who had become more than just faces. But that didn't matter now. Their laughter faded, replaced by a relentless chorus of dread vibrating within her. How would she explain this to Jake and Lily when they asked about Grandma? The thought twisted in her gut, sending bolts of guilt raging through her veins. There was never enough money, never enough time. She was always behind, barely able to keep the fragile threads of their lives intact. A missed shift, a slip of focus. They all relied on her, and the burden weighed heavier as night approached. As darkness fell, an uneasy sensation settled in her chest. The pharmacy was closed. The familiar alleyways of the town had never felt so isolating. Out of options, her sketchy knowledge of potential replacements for the medication darted through her mind. But the reality was cruelly clear. She needed the correct prescription. She felt hopeless, like a giant hand weighing her down as the walls of the diner seemed to close in on her. The pressure of impending chaos was palpable, striking at the very core of what she fought for every day. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as helplessness wrapped its fingers around her throat, Harold appeared at the entrance, his demeanor calm yet focused. A retired doctor whose kindness had always been reassuring. He approached her, eyebrows furrowed. "Sarah, what is wrong?" His voice was steady, as if somehow he had sensed her inner turmoil from blocks away. She hesitated before unleashing her panic, her body tingling with anxiety. The urgency seeped into every word. Her mother. The wrong prescription. She was a breath away from crumbling as her fears felt nearly insurmountable. As Harold's brow softened, he listened intently. He promised to help, igniting a spark of hope flickering but undeniable. Their conversation then traversed the weight of healthcare injustices and personal dreams, weaving aspirations and regrets around their dialogue. For the first time in what felt like forever, the notion of pursuing a life beyond waitressing, of becoming more than just another hard-working mother, bubbled to the surface. But then, an unsettling fear clawed at her as she grasped the reality of her situation. Could she truly chase after anything more while being tethered to her children and their needs? As the discussions deepened, contrasting the joy of possibility with the burdens of daily survival, Sarah felt herself tipping precariously. The line between hope and despair blurred, as powerful feelings of ambition clashed with the tangible chaos of her life. In that moment, she realized the crushing weight of potential. But would her courage match the stakes? As she looked into Harold's eyes, flickers of a future danced on the horizon. Though shadows loomed large, the questions gnawed at her. Could she break free, redefine her existence, drag her family along, and confront societal challenges that felt just out of reach? The clock inched forward, the stakes unfurling like the final breaths before a storm threatening, yet electric with the promise of change. Harold took a breath, the gravity of the moment lingering between them like a thick fog. "You have to remember, Sarah," he said softly but firmly, "change won't happen overnight. But it's possible." His words hung in the air, and for the first time, She felt something stir within her, a quiet determination fueled by desperation. As he recounted stories of other patients he had once treated, the glimmers of hope sparkled in his eyes. They navigated the winding paths of memories, families saved, lives transformed, and Sarah found herself captivated, almost entranced by the world beyond her diner. It made her wonder, were these dreams truly unreachable? The burden of her mother's health hovered over her still, but now it felt like a stepping stone rather than a lead weight. What if, Sarah muttered, more to herself than to Harold, what if I pursued nursing? The thought surprised her, setting off a cascade of feelings she had long stifled. This new idea breathed life into the fantasies she had tucked away due to practicality. She pictured herself in scrubs, healing and caring, making tangible changes in lives her mother's included. Harold leaned a little closer, reading the flicker of resolve igniting in her. That's a fantastic goal. You've already shown such strength in caring for your family. Imagine channeling that into a career where you can make a difference in so many lives. His affirmation sent a rush of warmth through her, infusing her with a flicker of belief she had thought extinguished. But the storm within her grew louder. Could she really juggle this ambition with the demands of parenting? Jake and Lily needed her. School routines, homework woes, and the everyday chaos of being a single mother loomed larger than any dream. The worry twisted within her, but this time it felt different, transformed by the consideration of her own aspirations. What if her kids saw her chase her dreams? What if they learned resilience through her efforts? Sarah's thoughts turned back to her mother's current state. Could she uphold this new dream while being the caregiver her family needed? It was then she realized that denying herself was not just about her own dissatisfaction. It potentially robbed her children of witnessing perseverance in action. The thought both frightened and exhilarated her. Harold, she began, steadying her voice. What's the first step? If I wanted to pursue nursing, how do I even start? Her heart thrummed in her chest, each beat calling for motivation and resolve. A good question, he replied, a sly smile creeping into the corners of his mouth. You need to explore options, look up local programs, connect with resources. I could help you with introductions, you already have so much knowledge. As he laid out potential paths, strategies, and even financial aid options, Sarah absorbed every word. The possibilities expanded like a universe opening up at her fingertips, igniting a determination deep within her. There was likely a daunting road ahead, but nothing felt impossible. With each moment, clarity emerged from the chaos. This wasn't just about medicine. It was about self-discovery and sowing seeds of autonomy. Yet, as the conversation deepened, shadows still lurked. The heaviness of her responsibilities and the fear of the unknown nipped at the edges of this newfound hope. She could sense that her journey toward a new purpose would not only reveal personal strengths, but also test her resolve in ways she had yet to fathom. Sarah, Harold's tone shifted, pulling her from her reverie. Change is also about confronting fears. What do you fear the most about pursuing your dream? The question hung in the air, a challenge that pierced the veil of her optimism. What if she failed? What if the balance shattered, leading to a drift away from her children's needs? As dread crept back, she imagined the moment of truth, the crossroads ahead with all her aspirations laid bare. Swallowing hard, she faced Harold, knowing that to embrace her ambitions would require stepping into the unknown, a journey riddled with potential backlash. But, clearing her throat, Sarah began to piece together an answer. This wasn't merely a choice but a commitment to herself and her children, as she straddled the chasm between fear and the pursuit of fulfillment. As evening turned into night, she resolved to take that step. If necessary, the foundation of her determination would be built not only on hopes but on the unyielding love for her children, pushing her past the boundaries of fear into the realm of possibilities. Just as she grasped this realization, the phone rang, jolting her from her thoughts. The sound echoed ominously through the diner, heralding news that could shift the ground beneath her new ambitions yet again. With her heart racing, she wondered, could this call derail her plans or lead to unexpected allies in her journey? Sarah's heart raced as she fumbled for her phone, the bright screen buzzing with an energy that mirrored her turbulent emotions. Diana, her mother's closest friend, was on the other line. She rarely called at this hour, which triggered a knot in Sarah's stomach. "Sarah, I'm so sorry to bother you," Diana began, her voice trembling. "It's about your mom. I think you need to come over." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. Fear wrapped around her throat like a vice. What has happened? She's been feeling worse today. I think Diana's voice cracked. I think she may need to go to the hospital. The news sent shockwaves through her mind, cascading her hopes for nursing into a whirlpool of uncertainty. What was she supposed to do? How could she manage this while simultaneously trying to reforge her identity? "I'm on my way," she replied with a determination that surprised even her. As she drove through the dimly lit streets, shadows flickered in her mind, bringing forth the worries she had managed to temporarily silence. Could she finish nursing school and still provide for Jake and Lily? And what if her mother's health continued to deteriorate? Would pursuing her dreams become a burden rather than a path to freedom? Each question pounded in her head, threatening to drown her resolve. But as she recalled Harold's encouraging voice, her grip tightened on the steering wheel. This could be an opportunity to put the wheels in motion, a pivotal moment that could catalyze her transformation. When she entered her mother's home, the smell of stale coffee hung in the air, a stark contrast to the warmth and vibrancy Sarah had once known. Her mother's frail figure sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale and drawn. A part of Sarah wanted to rush forward, to envelop her in love and stability. Yet another part hesitated, paralyzed by the enormity of both the moment and her choices. "Mom?" Sarah approached, her voice softer than she intended. Diana called. "I think we should go to the hospital." Her mother merely nodded, eyes vacant, as if understanding the weight of both their situations but unable to communicate the fear they shared. In that moment, Sarah felt the shifts within her harden. This wasn't just about pursuing a career anymore. It was about being a strong foundation for her family, navigating their lives while forging her own path. As they waited for the paramedics, Sarah's thoughts began to crystallize. She contemplated the balance she would need to strike. If she could manage the chaos, if she could find the energy to confront uncertainty, she could also discover her potential as a nurse. The wail of the ambulance siren pierced the stillness outside, echoing the urgency in her heart. The paramedics arrived, and their professional demeanor brought a flicker of relief. They assessed her mother with swift efficiency, and Sarah felt a rush of admiration for their competence. Moments like this made her yearn even more for the role she envisioned. She wanted to be that source of assurance and strength. But as they loaded her mother onto the stretcher, another wave of doubt crashed over her. Suddenly, pursuing nursing seemed like a mountain she was ill-equipped to climb. "Hey, miss," one of the paramedics turned to her, catching her eye. "You doing okay?" Sarah nodded stiffly, embodying all the strength she could muster. "Just a lot on my plate." "Yeah, I get it. But, he paused, gauging her before continuing. "You've got to take care of yourself too. Sometimes helping someone also means getting your own life together." His words struck deep, resonating with the very essence of her struggle. As the ambulance doors closed, sealing her mother away from her grasp, Sarah realized she needed to confront the fear of her mother's precarious health alongside her own ambition. It was time to step up not just as a daughter but as the resilient woman she aspired to be. With a renewed sense of purpose igniting within her, she resolved right there that she would honor this pivotal moment. She would chase her dreams, but she would also ensure her family was taken care of, deliberately weaving her ambitions into the fabric of their lives. As she returned home, her mind racing with plans and calculations for how to balance care for her children and pursue education, the phone rang again. Familiar yet unexpected, it was Harold's number lighting up her screen. Anxiety bubbled anew within her, as she wondered if he would help her plot this delicate course she needed to navigate. Had he sensed her need? Or was it something else? The uncertainty loomed, but there was no denying the urgency of her new reality. As the phone rang, Sarah's mind teetered on the precipice of uncertainty. She hesitated, inhaling sharply. Harold was not just any voice. He carried with him a weight of hope and expectation she desperately needed to confront. Her fingers hovered over the screen, her heart racing. "Hello?" His voice was a lifeline, steady and clear. "Harold," she managed, her voice trembling slightly. "I just got back from my mom's. She's in the hospital." An uncomfortable silence stretched, filled only by the ever-accelerating beats of Sarah's heart. Finally, Harold broke it, his tone shifting to one of concern. "I'm sorry to hear that. How are you holding up?" "Not great, honestly." The admission felt like a crack in her armor. "I have so much to juggle right now. School, the kids, and now this. Have you thought about what you need to do next?" He probed, cutting through her fog of worry with pragmatic clarity. The question rang in her mind, a challenge to focus on what lay ahead instead of being swallowed by the chaos. "No, I haven't had a chance to think," she admitted. "Why don't we meet up? We can brainstorm a plan," Harold suggested, his voice laced with a sense of urgency. "You're not alone, Sarah." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She was teetering on the edge of wanting to surrender and needing to stand firm. "Okay, where and when?" "Let us meet at the cafe on Pine." "I'll be there in 30, he replied before hanging up. As she prepared to leave her home again, every step felt weighted with significance. The distant hum of the street, the coolness of the evening air, reminded her this was not just a ritual of moving from one place to another. This was calibrating her life towards purpose. The cafe was bathed in warm light, a soft contrast to her internal storm. Harold was already seated at a corner booth, a laptop open in front of him. His features were a mix of concern and determination when he looked up. "Hey, you made it." As she slid into the seat across from him, the reality of her situation pressed hard against her chest. "So, where do we start?" "First, let us prioritize. You have kids, school, and your mom's health all demanding your attention. What can we adjust?" He prompted, typing out notes that felt almost like a roadmap to salvation. She exhaled slowly, the rhythm of her breath aligning momentarily with her thoughts. "I can't let my kids down. But I can't ignore my education either. I have to make it work somehow." Harold nodded in affirmation, his expressions grounding her spiraling emotions. "What if you spoke to your professors? They typically understand these situations, especially if you're upfront." His suggestion echoed the advice she had been wrestling with internally, yet spoken aloud, it felt like flicking a switch on a hidden power she had long neglected. "Yeah, I could do that. Timing is everything," he added, jotting down her courses. "Let us draft an email together. Also, is there a way someone can support you with Jake and Lily while you're at the hospital? I've thought about asking Diana or maybe my neighbor Sarah mused, but the thought of reaching out made her heart race again. What would it mean to depend on others so openly? "That's a good start," Harold encouraged. "It's crucial to have a support system, especially right now." As they brainstormed, the tension that once pulled at her began to ebb. With each suggestion, Sarah discovered confidence within herself, a hidden reservoir she had scarcely tapped into. Perhaps her mother's situation was not a hindrance but rather a catalyst, urging her to realign her priorities and step into her strength. But as confidence sparked within, another wave arose. The reality of her mother's health put everything in stark perspective. What if the turbulence of this situation overwhelmed her resolve? Just as she was lost in the haze of those dark thoughts, Harold's laptop chimed, a notification flashing across the screen. "Oh, hold on," he said, glanced at it and then focused back on her. "Let us take a moment." "You all right?" "Just scared," she confessed. "What if I can't hold everything together?" He leaned slightly forward, his eyes locking onto hers with sincerity. "You can do this. But remember, it's okay to let go of some things. Focus on what truly matters." His words hung like a mantra, but the unknown loomed large. "Do you think I can really make it in nursing?" she asked, vulnerability cracking the surface of her resolve. "This situation right now, it's painful, but it could make you stronger. You can emerge as an incredible nurse, someone who understands vulnerability from both sides. Just think about it. What's your next step?" As they spoke through logistics, her ambitions began transforming into tangible actions. Sarah felt a pulse of determination. At last, she would be the one forging her destiny. Yet, Just when she began feeling resolute, her phone vibrated violently against the table, breaking their momentum. A call from the hospital. Her stomach dropped into a pit of uncertainty. What now? Do you want to take it? Harold asked softly, and she felt caught between hope and dread, stretching out toward the unknown future that loomed large before her. This was the moment she had to confront. Would it propel her forward, or veer her off course entirely? As the phone continued its incessant buzzing, Sarah's heart raced. She inhaled deeply, trying to steady herself before answering. What would they say? It was a moment of conspiracy between dread and hope, leaving her teetering on a precarious edge. With a shake of her head, she managed a stiff yes, and slipped her finger across the screen to accept the call. Hello? She ventured, her voice sounding distant even to her. Ms. Collins? This is Dr. Spencer from St. Mary's. I need to speak with you about your mother's condition. His tone was clinical yet compassionate, and it bluntly cut through the thrum of anxiety that flooded her mind. Is she okay? What's happening? Panic filled her articulation, each word punctuated by the uncertainty gnawing at her gut. Your mother is stable, but we believe she needs immediate surgery. I suggest you come in as soon as possible to discuss the next steps. His words resonated with urgency and gravity, and Sarah could feel the ground beneath her shifting violently. I'll be there, she promised, though her mind was already racing. How to coordinate everything, how to tell the kids, how to communicate this to her professors. The call ended, leaving her breathless. She found herself staring at Harold, who had assumed a resolute expression as if he too was poised to act. What did they say? He asked quietly, leaning in. She needs surgery. I have to go to the hospital, she replied, urgency making her voice tremble. Then let us go, he asserted, gathering his things promptly. Despite her chaos, there was an undeniable sense of gratitude that coursed through her. She wasn't alone. Together, they stepped outside into the night, the chill of the air abrupt against her skin as they reached his car. Each click of the passenger seat belt felt like a decisive moment, a small declaration of intent to confront the challenges ahead. The kids, Sarah began, fear flooding back into her thoughts. Diana, Harold interjected confidently as they pulled onto the road. Text her now. I'm sure she'll be willing to help with them for a few hours. You need to focus on your mom. His calm and collected demeanor steadied her racing thoughts. Sarah's fingers danced on her phone as she sent the message, a slight tremble giving away her continued anxiety. She barely registered the simple reply from Diana, assuring her everything would be fine. Okay, she whispered, allowing the weight to begin shifting off her shoulders. With each moment of action, she was unwinding the strings of her overextended responsibilities. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could navigate this storm. As they approached the hospital, anticipation morphed into dread. The imposing structure loomed ahead, bright lights projecting into the darkness. Memories flooded her mind sitting beside her mother during past hospital visits. The sound of machines, the sterile smell of antiseptic. A past she wished to shift but couldn't escape. Let me handle the logistics with the nurses, Harold said, breaking through her reverie. You head straight to her room. Once you get there, you can decide what you want to say. Take your time. His words sparked determination within her vulnerability. The chaos in her mind settled momentarily, replaced by the necessity of presence. She needed to be strong, not just for herself but for her mother. Once inside, she was met by the busy sounds of the ER. The atmosphere crackled with urgency and purpose that both terrified and energized her. She maneuvered through the halls, uncertainty drumming at her core, but with each step, she reminded herself of why she was here. Finally arriving at her mother's room, Sarah paused before entering. With each inhale, she gathered courage, preparing to be that daughter her mother needed, even when fear clung to her heart. But when she stepped inside, an unexpected sight greeted her. Her mother, sitting up feebly, her spirit still fighting, but all too visibly frail. A nurse was adjusting 4 fluids, and her mother's eyes lit with recognition. Sarah, her mother breathed, and in that moment, Sarah felt the rush of emotion swell. Every longing and fear crashed into a single resolve. She could do this. Just as she reached out, Harold appeared in the doorway, a nurse following closely behind. "Mom?" the nurse said, drawing Sarah's attention. "Would you like to have a quick discussion about your mother's prognosis?" The sense of impending dread flooded back. Did she have the strength to hear it? As Harold remained a steady pillar by her side, the burden crawled back up her spine. A wave of fortitude surged within her. She owed it to herself and her mother to know everything. With a deep breath, Sarah turned to face the nurse, ready to confront whatever information came next. What she didn't know was how deeply this moment would alter her view of herself moving forward. Standing at the crossroads of uncertainty and necessity, a thought looped tirelessly in her mind. What might arise from the depths of this challenge? What hidden realities about her strength and capabilities might the future reveal? With that thought gripped fiercely in her heart, she found herself readying for the next phase of this journey, to unfold one she had not anticipated but desperately needed. Sarah's gaze fixated on the nurse, her heart thumping in synchrony with the relentless beeping of the monitors surrounding her mother. Each sound echoed the urgency pulsating through her veins. The tension in the room felt palpable, as if the very air around her was thick with the weight of unsaid fears. "Your mother's surgery is critical," the nurse continued, her voice steady yet laden with an edge of seriousness that made Sarah's throat tighten. "We need your consent to proceed. Are you ready to discuss her medical history and what to expect?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the burden of responsibility. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to shift from daughter to decision-maker. This wasn't just about her pain anymore. This was about her mother's fight, the fight they would wage together. Gathering her composure, she nodded slowly, her brain racing through the implications of this moment. "Okay, what do I need to know?" The words escaped her lips barely above a whisper, but they held within them a burgeoning determination. Suddenly, she wasn't just a daughter filled with helplessness. She was a person capable of wielding influence, a critical voice in the outcome of her mother's health. The nurse detailed the procedure, illustrating the risks and potential outcomes. With each word, Sarah felt the cracks form in her carefully constructed facade of composure. She envisioned her mother in the operating room, exposed and vulnerable. What if it went wrong? What if this was it? "Miss Collins?" The nurse's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts as she repeated, "Do you have any questions?" Sarah's instinct was to retreat into her worries, but as she looked at the nurse's expectant face, something within her shifted. "What's the success rate for this surgery?" she asked, her voice firmer now. "That's a valid question." The nurse nodded, impressed perhaps by Sarah's newfound resolve. "For this type of surgery, we expect around 85% success. It's a common procedure, but every patient is different, of course." 85%, Sarah repeated, absorbing the information like a lifeline. It wasn't a guarantee, but the numbers whispered a glimmer of hope. The dialogue flourished, each question peeling away layers of uncertainty, revealing her capacity to influence outcomes, not just for her mother, but for herself. An unexpected thought struck Sarah. Perhaps this was an awakening, a chance to discover the relentless strength dwelling within her. Each piece of information was an anchor, tethering her in an otherwise chaotic sea. With each question, she silently vowed to her mother, and to herself the fight wouldn't be hers alone. The discussion with the nurse ended, and as she left to prepare for the surgery, Sarah turned to her mother who was watching her intently. "Mom, I'm going to be right here. Okay? We're in this together." In that moment, vulnerability blended into a newfound vigor, anchoring her sense of responsibility and pushing her even further into the depths of her own capabilities. "You've always been my brave girl," her mother replied, her voice wavering but filled with unyielding belief. The compliment struck Sarah, reverberating in her chest, breathing life into her cautious resolve. As her mother closed her eyes, fatigue settling over her face, Sarah realized that being strong didn't mean being without fear. It meant embracing that fear, channeling it into action. She could build her strength amidst the turmoil. She felt time slipping away, yet it catalyzed her desire to confront an adversary she had never truly embraced, her own self-doubt. Stepping out into the hallway, Sarah felt a wave of urgency ripple through her. She needed to reach out, not just to plan but to reclaim control of her life, her rhythm disrupted by uncertainty. She found a small waiting area, pulled out her phone, and texted her professors, detailing her situation while requesting extensions on her assignments. Each keystroke was a reminder of her agency, and as the messages sent, a sigh of relief coursed through her, grounding her further. But as she stepped back towards her mother's room, a shadow flickered in her peripheral vision, a doctor approaching, his brow furrowed in concern. The air shifted once more, anticipation mingling with the dread of new circumstances. What did he carry with him? In that fleeting moment, Sarah's world narrowed to the doctor's approach, her heart pounding a silent rhythm. A new challenge loomed ahead, and she was ready to face it. The stakes were rising, her evolution becoming a truth rather than a mere aspiration. What lay ahead would demand her to confront yet another aspect of herself she never knew existed. As she prepared to step into the pivotal conversation with the doctor, a question burned brightly in her mind. Would this lead her deeper into uncharted territory or unfurl unexpected revelations about the woman she was meant to be? The doctor approached Sarah with an air of gravity, his expression tight and serious. She felt her heart rate spike again as he stopped in front of her. This was it, she had to maintain her composure. "Miss Collins," he began, his voice steady but carrying a weight that sent chills down her spine. "I need to speak to you about your mother's condition." For a split second, Sarah was paralyzed by fear. What if he was about to deliver devastating news? Yet, she felt that spark of determination flicker within her, igniting her resolve. "What's happening?" she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. He led her to a quieter corner of the hallway, away from the chaos of the bustling ER. "Your mother's situation is complex. Although we expect the surgery to be successful, we've noticed some irregularities in her recent tests. We need to analyze these closely before proceeding." Every word he uttered felt like a domino knocking over all her prior confidence. The potential of her mother's life being questioned expanded the chasm of her anxiety. But buried within the terror was an instinct to gather information. What kind of irregularities? She pressed, determined that fear wouldn't paralyze her again. "Elevated markers can indicate a possible complication," he replied, and though his tone was clinical, Sarah felt the punch of reality in her gut. "We may need to reassess before we proceed." The words echoed in the crevices of her mind. She wanted to scream this wasn't how it was supposed to go. But Sarah refused to let despair set the tone of this moment. Instead, she felt clarity cutting through the fog. "How long will that take?" "He'll need about an hour to conduct further tests, and then we can discuss next steps." Comprehension settled in. She took a breath, her mind racing once more, contemplating what an hour could mean. Felt like an eternity. Yet, within that span, she could harness her anxiety, consolidate her power, and emerge stronger on the other side. "I want to be kept updated," Sarah said, standing taller. "Please, if there are any developments, I need to know immediately." The doctor nodded, a flicker of surprise evident in his eyes. It was a small affirmation of her increasing strength, a shift from the daughter racked with fear to one who stood firm, demanding answers. As he walked away, she felt a surge of empowerment. This was more than mere anger against the circumstances. It was a channeling of energy into active, assertive choices. Sarah stepped outside for a moment, hoping the fresh air could alleviate the storm swelling inside her. She needed a plan. Her thoughts raced around her situation, not just the immediate medical concern but her entire life. Returning to her phone, she opened her emails and started crafting a message to the student council. A fleeting reminder of her ambitions fueled her typing. "I need to take charge of my personal commitments actively," she thought. Somewhere, in the chaotic equation of balancing school, life, and worry, she had more control than she realized. As she pressed send, a realization sliced through the overwhelming dread. This experience was unearthing her potential. It was forcing her to approach her education with the same fierce determination she was nurturing in this hospital. Her phone buzzed with a new message, but it wasn't from the professors. Instead, it was her best friend checking in. A knot formed in her chest. She hesitated before replying. Verbally asking for support felt like admitting defeat. But then she remembered something her mother once told her. It's all right to ask for help, Sarah. It didn't mean weakness. It was simply part of growth, the acknowledgement that community could bolster her strength. With renewed vigor, she tapped out a quick response, inviting her friend to come by. Pacing in the waiting room, time seemed elastic, stretching into an agonizing wait. Yet, during that time, uncertainty nudged her toward something profound, and understanding that her emotions didn't have to dictate her fate. The realization hit her with a rush. She didn't want to just be reactive in her life. She wanted to be proactive, to forge ahead rather than remain trapped in fear and self-doubt. Suddenly, the doctor appeared again, a folder in hand and a new expression on his face, one that mixed professionalism with empathy. The anticipation of what he would say sent shivers coursing through her. This was the moment that could change everything, for better or worse. Sarah inhaled deeply, ready to confront whatever news he brought forth, prepared to meet it with her newfound courage, even if it meant wrestling with her deepest fears. But the question lingered in her mind. Would she finally discover the depth of her resilience? Or would the waiting reveal uncertainties that could unravel everything she had fought to build in those last tense hours? The doctor's gaze pinned Sarah for a moment before he began to speak, and she sensed a change in the atmosphere. It was more than gravity, it was tension laced with hope. We're ready to proceed, he said, his tone firm but not unkind. The additional tests showed some variations that can be monitored, but nothing that definitively prohibits proceeding with the surgery. Relief flooded Sarah instantly, but it was soon overridden by an acute awareness of the hurdles still ahead. She focused on the moment, absorbing each word but aware that her journey had taken on an entirely new dimension. What does this mean for her recovery? She pressed, driven by the urgency to protect her mother from any additional turmoil. Post-operative care will be crucial. We'll need to keep a close watch for any signs of complications, he replied. It was matter of fact, yet she felt the weight of the responsibility resting squarely on her shoulders. This was no longer just about the present moment. It was a call to prepare herself for the arduous road of recovery, both for her mother and, inevitably, for herself. With the doctor finishing his explanation, a flurry of thoughts raced through her mind. She had taken the first step toward reclaiming agency in her life, but now that agency demanded sustained engagement. She couldn't afford to drift through this experience. She needed to act deliberately. I want to be involved in her recovery planning, Sarah asserted, pride swelling in her chest. She recognized the quiet resolve in her voice, a stark contrast to the timid girl she had been earlier. I'll do whatever it takes to ensure she is supported. The doctor nodded, appreciation shining through his initial professionalism. That's commendable. We will encourage you to participate in our discussions with the nursing team. Your presence will be valuable. With a multitude of questions swirling in her mind, she hesitated momentarily. The thought of going deeper into this unfamiliar territory was intimidating. Each choice she now made felt heavy with consequence. Yet, instead of retreating to doubt, she felt a subtle shift, the dawning of a proactive mindset. Let us schedule a time for those meetings, Sarah said, her voice steady and purposeful. I want to make sure I'm prepared for anything. As she felt the conversations unfold, Sarah began to see a broader reflection of her own academic and professional desires. If she could take charge in this challenging situation, why couldn't she channel that same determination into her studies? She recalled her aspirations toward leadership in student government, her desire to influence her peers positively. Visions flashed through her head, the conference meetings, the discussions about policy, the engagements with new experiences. She wrestled with the tension between feeling overwhelmed by her current commitments while simultaneously sensing the potential of stepping into a leadership role. When her friend finally arrived, visibly concerned but also ready to lend support, Sarah took a deep breath and allowed herself to share. I need you to help keep me accountable, she said, expressing a request for partnership in her journey. This wasn't just about her mother anymore. It was about her rising commitment to herself, to growth, and to embracing each of life's uncertainties with courage. Together, they discussed ways Sarah could balance hospital visits with her academic deadlines, coming up with a burning schedule that also allowed moments for self-care. A newfound resolve sparked inside her, clearer than before. She was carving out a path for her personal and professional journey. As the sun began to sink outside the hospital, casting long shadows and a warm golden light, Sarah felt her perspective strengthening. The challenges ahead would push her limits, but a fire persisted the notion that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Just as she began envisioning her next moves, her phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from the student council, reminding her of their next meeting, a chance to present her ideas for a community event she had been passionate about for months. But this time she had a different mindset. She had wrestled with fear and emerged more resolute. Could she translate the momentum from her personal life into something powerful for her peers? In that moment, a wave of excitement washed over her, obfuscating previous trepidations. The time had come for her to merge her two worlds, life at the hospital and life at school, into something truly transformative. Sarah stood ready, a sense of urgency propelling her forward. The email contained an attached agenda detailing the upcoming meeting, but what caught her eye most was a note highlighting a vacant leadership position. The moment of truth had arrived. Would she take the plunge and seize this opportunity, or would she hesitate and let it slip away? As Sarah stared at the email, her heart raced, an electric buzz coursing through her veins. The leadership position hovered in her mind, taunting her with possibilities and dilemmas. Was she ready to make such a substantial commitment? Her thoughts spiraled into a cacophony of self-doubt, the familiar specter of hesitation creeping back in. Yet beneath it all, the steady rhythm of her mother's fight for recovery pumped a more potent energy through her, an urgency to seize the moment. With each pulse of her heart, confidence battled uncertainty. What if she failed? The nagging question lingered, clinging to the back of her mind. Yet, when she glanced at her phone again, a reminder of the upcoming meetings to discuss her mother's recovery flashed on the screen. Each discussion would require her presence, her contributions framed in purpose. Could she truly afford to let opportunities pass? Taking a deep breath, she opened her calendar app and scrolled through the week. The days felt crammed, each filled with obligations. But she recognized that the leadership role offered more than a title. It was a chance to influence others, to foster community in a way that resonated with her goals. Closing her eyes for a brief moment, Sarah envisioned herself standing at the front of a room, confidently articulating ideas, rallying her peers. The magnetic pull of aspiration sparked a resolve within her. She could manage both responsibilities. After all, she had navigated turmoil with her mother, had found her agency amidst chaos. If that could lead her here on the brink of a leadership opportunity, then she would not shrink back. She would embrace the duality of her life, a caretaker at the hospital and a leader among her peers. With a newfound clarity, she began to draft a response to the student council. She would express her interest in the position, but first, she needed to assess her bandwidth. What resources were available to her? Who could she lean on, like her friend who had promised support? It was essential she didn't overlook the networking aspect of leadership. As she typed, her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. What was her vision for the council? She had a well of ideas brewing, from enhancing student engagement to fostering better communication among diverse groups on campus. Yet another wave of doubt threatened. Was she inexperienced? Would they take her seriously? The clatter of footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. It was her friend returning from a coffee run, and with a warm smile, she approached. "You look deep in thought," she said, placing a steaming cup on the table in front of Sarah. "Just weighing my options," Sarah replied, the words faltering slightly. It was there, in that moment, that she realized she could articulate her aspirations openly. "There's a leadership position I'm considering, but part of me is still doubting if I can handle it." Her friend raised an eyebrow, tilting her head slightly. "Sarah, you've been through so much and you've handled it with grace. If anyone has the capacity to lead, it's you. The confidence in her friend's voice ignited a spark within Sarah. There was truth in her assertion, and it cut through the clouds of insecurity hanging over her. Maybe you're right, she admitted, a flicker of determination spreading through her. I want to do something impactful, encourage our peers, even help them navigate their own challenges. It's clear you're already doing that for your mom, her friend said, a knowing smile illuminating her face. This is just another extension of that passion. Sarah nodded slowly, her thoughts colliding and aligning with newfound clarity. Perhaps the essence of true leadership lay not simply in competence but in the experience of adversity. She had learned resilience from her mother's struggle, and perhaps that lesson was precisely what she could offer to her peers. With renewed fervor, Sarah finished composing her email. As she hit send, a rush of adrenaline surged through her chest. This was the moment, a commitment to herself and her aspirations. However, as she began to ponder how best to present her ideas at the upcoming meeting, an unsettling thought crept back. What if one of her peers spoke up against her? What if she had to confront those who belittled her ambitions? The thrill of pursuing her passion was inexplicably tangled with the fear of rejection. At that moment, the phone vibrated again in her pocket. As she pulled it out, she saw it was an update from the student council, a formal announcement about new projects needing urgency. A feeling of unease fluttered in her stomach. Familiarity with navigating difficult conversations was brewing within her. But how would it hold up in a setting where opinions clashed? The struggle between exhilarating possibility and looming confrontation settled over her like a haze. Would this invitation to lead ultimately put her aspirations to the test? The weight of the unknown pressed down, leaving her on the edge, ready to dive into the fray of leadership, yet acutely aware that the path wouldn't be as simple as she hoped. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she steeled herself for the dialogues ahead, both personal and professional, and took a deep breath. This time she would confront the challenges head-on. What awaited her as she ventured into this new realm? The days passed with a rhythmic intensity, each one pulling Sarah deeper into the multifaceted journey of motherhood, education, and unexpected leadership. The weight of her mother's health still loomed large, but through the struggle, Sarah felt a growing resilience unfurl within her. Every decision she faced was sharpened by the reality that she could manage whatever came next, a truth she embraced with steadfast conviction. The student council meeting arrived, a pivotal moment in the ongoing narrative of Sarah's transformation. She entered the room, heart thrumming in time with the whispers of apprehension draped around her. Gone were the days of merely surviving. She was here to assert herself, to carve space for her ambition alongside her responsibilities. The members of the council were engaged in hushed conversations, glancing up as Sarah approached, their expressions a blend of curiosity and encouragement. When the time came for her to present her ideas, confidence overcame trepidation. She stood before them, her voice steady as she unveiled her vision not just for events, but for a community fostered through resilience and connection. As her words weaved through the air, she felt an electric charge. Her experience navigating her mother's illness became not a liability, but a wellspring of strength. The council members leaned forward, clearly engaged, nodding as she articulated her goals. She could see that her authenticity resonated, breaking down barriers and inviting collaboration. The ideas flowed between them, and as they brainstormed ways to implement community support initiatives, she felt her earlier doubts shatter like glass. This was a genuine exchange, a network of individuals united under the same goal, feeding off one another's passion. As the meeting concluded, a round of applause erupted, filling Sarah with an unshakable sense of belonging. It was a moment concrete in its recognition. They saw her potential, and she had stepped into her role as a leader. Each nod of approval, each idea contributed, fortified her resolve. She had achieved not only personal growth but also established her competence within a new sphere of influence. Days turned into weeks, yet her ambition coursed alongside the realities of her life. Balancing the needs of Jake and Lily while investing her energy in council projects proved challenging. Yet Sarah learned the delicate art of negotiation. She reached out to her support system, Diana, friends, teachers crafting a safety net that caught her every time she felt the weight of it all pull her down. Amid the turmoil, her mother slowly regained strength, inching toward recovery. As she watched her mother fight, Sarah absorbed the lessons of resilience that threaded through their shared experiences. Each visit to the hospital took on a new perspective, transforming what once felt like bleakness into stories of determination and hope. They spoke passionately about life after recovery, glimmers of Sarah's nursing dream igniting in her mother's eyes. One crisp evening, standing through the hospital's visiting hours, Sarah felt her mother's frail hand clasp hers firmly. "You've always been the strong one, Sarah," her mother murmured, pride crystal clear in her resonance. Moments like these infused Sarah's spirit with an unctuous warmth her mother believed in her dream. Returning from the hospital, Sarah opted to review her notes for the next student council meeting. Her heart surged as she sketched out new projects. The ambition she had carefully nurtured now took form in concrete endeavors benefiting her peers. It wasn't just about advocating for herself. It was about building a community. The realization thrummed within her as she wrote, expanding her vision beyond her immediate circle and recognizing the weight of her influence. Then, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. A lively Jake and Lily burst in, laughter spilling through the room like sunlight. Their energy reflected the growth Sarah had undergone. She was no longer just a provider, but a role model sharing her journey. With them, she sat down with them, discussing her day and encouraging Jake to pursue his interests openly. Their voices mingled, filled with the comfort of support. The thread of connection strengthened in each shared moment. As the school's final exams approached, Sarah felt anxious about balancing every responsibility. But instead of retreating into doubt, she steeled herself against it. She had conquered larger obstacles, and now the stakes seemed manageable. The tests would not define her. Rather, they were yet another opportunity to meld her newfound determination with her experiences. Motivated by her progress, Sarah arranged study sessions with classmates, opening her door to collaboration rather than competition. They worked together, pooling knowledge and sharing insights, and she discovered strength in their unity. When exam day finally arrived, Sarah approached the test with a renewed sense of purpose, confidence radiating from her very core. Receiving her scores a week later felt surreal, yet profoundly rewarding. She had achieved commendable results, a testament not only to her hard work but also to the resilient spirit that had come to fruition amidst adversity. Sarah held onto the exam scores, not merely as numbers but as affirmations of her capability, proof that she could successfully balance her life, her ambitions, and her responsibilities. As she reconvened with the student council, the atmosphere was electric, not just with anticipation, but with a shared understanding of the diverse paths each member had been navigating. She saw her mother reflected in their persistence, and her own journey illuminated each person's story. Sarah spoke boldly, her voice full of assurance, challenging her peers to elevate their efforts. Community, she asserted, thrived when individuals acknowledged their struggles and transformed them into collective ambition. The recognition was palpable. Not only had Sarah transformed her own path, but she had also inspired others to explore their potential. It was the culmination of a long journey, punctuated with challenges that had morphed into profound growth. Sarah's personal achievement extended beyond academic accolades. It became a woven tapestry, intertwining her dreams of nursing with the love for her family and community. In that full-circle moment, she understood with clear clarity that she was becoming the woman her mother had seen all along. Not just a caregiver, but a leader driven by passion. In conclusion, as she stood at the podium, her voice resonated with hope and confidence, a narrative that had been molded through her experiences. And as their applause thundered around her, she knew this wasn't just a one-time achievement. Rather, it marked the start of her unfolding story, one defined by continuous growth and unwavering perseverance. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and shape lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because every action matters in keeping this community thriving. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's inspiring journey. Your words could empower someone else dreaming to follow their path. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. It's time to spread the strength.